Her message arrives not as a gentle rain after a long drought, but as a lightning strike on a clear day. It appears precisely when the silence has become comfortable, when her ghost no longer haunts the edges of your thoughts, and your life has finally regained its own momentum. This is the great paradox that ties men in knots. She reaches out not because you've been waiting, but because you've stopped. Her text is not a coincidence landing in your moment of peace. It is a direct consequence of it. It's a subconscious reaction to the power shift you initiated by simply letting go. She isn't knocking on your door because she wants to come back inside. She is rattling the handle because she is terrified to find it locked. Her outreach is not a signal of her affection for you. It is a symptom of her anxiety about her fading influence over you. This sudden jolt of vindicated confusion is a feeling you likely know all too well. The surge of, "I knew she'd come back," immediately clashes with the suspicion of, "But why now?" If this emotional paradox makes sense to you, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share your thoughts below, because we need to decode this together. The fundamental error you are about to make is personalization. You will see her name and believe her message is a referendum on your current value, a genuine, conscious choice to reconnect. You interpret this impulsive act of her emotional self-regulation as a carefully considered romantic overture about times you asterisk. The grand illusion is that you see this as the start of a new chapter, when in reality it's the epilogue of her internal struggle with losing her grip on your emotional state. You feel it in your chest before you even read the words, a phantom vibration. Her name on your screen is an echo from a life you were just beginning to leave behind. It carries the weight of every unanswered question, every sleepless night, every ounce of energy you poured into an empty space. And in that moment, your mind, starved for so long, builds an entire world from a few simple words like, "Thinking of you, you mistake this breadcrumb for a feast." But listen closer, not to what she says, but to the vast, cold space from which she says it. That silence is not filled with a pining for your presence. It's vibrating with the frequency of her own fear, the fear of being forgotten, of becoming irrelevant in the one place she was always the center. You feel the warmth of hope, but it's a false dawn. This is not an invitation. It is an interrogation. You must understand this above all else. Her message is a test, but not the kind you can pass by being charming or showing how much you've grown. It's a subconscious probe sent into the void where your attention used to be. She is not checking to see if times you times are okay. She is checking to see if her times power over you times is still intact. Your silence, your happiness, your forward momentum, these are not signals that attract her back to you. They are alarms that signal her loss of control. This act is not about rebuilding a connection. It is about restoring her ego. She is not reaching for your hand. She is reaching to feel the strings, just to make sure she can still make you dance if she ever feels the need to. And so the lie begins, not with a conscious decision, but as an instinct. You see her name, and your entire nervous system fires up with a single intoxicating thought, "I won." You believe her text is the finish line of a race you've been running alone for months. The behavior is immediate. Your thumb hovers over the keyboard. A general planning is first move after a long-awaited signal from the enemy camp. The psychological truth is that your ego, starved of her validation, is now feasting on this meager breadcrumb, inflating it into a banquet. You feel a surge of power, but it's a borrowed power. The emotional conclusion is devastatingly simple. In the split second you felt vindicated, you handed her back the keys to your inner peace. You've already lost the war before the first battle has even begun, because you've made her the prize once more. The next layer of the illusion is the story you tell yourself about her journey. You imagine her in quiet moments of reflection, haunted by your memory, finally realizing the magnitude of her loss. This narrative is a powerful anesthetic for the pain she caused. You see her message not as an impulse, but as the culmination of a deep, soul-searching process where you emerged as the answer. You've drafted that message 100 times in your head, haven't you? The cool, detached response that shows just how much you've grown. But this is a performance. You are not responding to her. You are auditioning for a role you believe you finally earned. The psychological engine here is the desperate need to retroactively win the breakup, to prove you were the one of higher value all along. But you are playing a game on her terms, on her timeline, proving only that her gravity is still strong enough to pull you out of your own orbit. You believe your newfound strength is what drew her back. You've been working on yourself, hitting the gym, focusing on your purpose, and you see her message as the ultimate validation of that effort. She sees you moving on, and now she wants what she can no longer have. This is a seductive and dangerous half-truth. The inversion is this: she isn't attracted to your new life. She is threatened by the emotional independence it represents. Her outreach is not a compliment to your growth. It is an attempt to disrupt it. The revelation is that your progress became an alarm bell, signaling to her subconscious that her control was fading. Your self-improvement was never for her. Yet you are now tempted to present it to her as a trophy. You are about to turn your genuine healing into evidence for her appeal, fundamentally misunderstanding that your power grew in her absence, not for her. Then there is the lie of timing. You think she reached out now because she finally healed, or because the universe conspired to bring you back together at the right time. You mistake her emotional impulse for destiny. The cold, mechanical truth is that her message is a reaction to a data point, your silence. Your continued absence from her life created a vacuum. Her text is an emotional sonar ping, sent out into the darkness, not to find you, but to confirm that the abyss where your attention used to be is still there. Her low-effort hey, or thinking of you, is not an opening for connection. It is a diagnostic tool. It is the least amount of effort she can expend to get the greatest possible emotional response, confirming that her influence remains. You are not a cherished memory being revisited. You are a ghost she needs to make sure still haunts the halls. You also fall for the trap of heroic empathy. You see her message, and your mind instantly jumps to a place of concern. She must be lonely, you think. Must be hurting. Your instinct to protect and provide kicks in, and you see yourself as the man who can soothe her pain. You imagine her alone, sad, scrolling through old photos, and your heart softens. But this is not about her loneliness for you. It is about her discomfort with her own emotional state. She is not reaching for a savior. She is reaching for a mirror that once reflected an image of herself as desired, as important, as the center of someone's world. Your empathy becomes the very tool she uses, unconsciously, to pull you back into the role of validating her existence. Tell me if you've felt that pull before, that sense of noble duty that feels like strength but is actually the beginning of your surrender. Ultimately, all these illusions collapse into the single catastrophic error of personalization. You believe her storm is about your shore. You see her text and you think it is a reflection of your worth, your progress, your irreplaceability. You analyze her words, the time she sent it, the punctuation she used, all as clues in a mystery where you are the protagonist. But you are not the main character in this story. You are a secondary plot point in her own internal drama about self-worth and control. Her message is not a love letter. It is a weather balloon she sends up to test the atmospheric pressure of her own influence. And if you respond believing you can steer her storm, you will quickly find you are not the lighthouse keeper. You are just another ship about to be pulled back out into the turbulent sea you fought so hard to escape. The truth is, her reaching out has almost nothing to do with you and everything to do with a fundamental law of emotional physics. Your attention was a constant pressure, a force that defined the space around her, even in its absence. When you truly began to move on, that pressure vanished. You created a vacuum. Her message is not a product of romantic reflection. It is a subconscious, biological reaction to that void. Nature abhors a vacuum, and so does the female ego when it has grown accustomed to being the center of an emotional universe. Her text is the sound of the universe rushing in to fill the space you left behind. It is an instinct, not an invitation. She feels the sudden lack of your energy, and her entire being panics, compelling her to restore the equilibrium she didn't even know she depended on. This is why the message itself is often so maddeningly vague. A simple, "Hey," or "This made me think of you." It's not a conversation starter. It's an emotional sonar ping. She is sending out the smallest possible signal with the lowest possible risk to see if it echoes back. A long, heartfelt message would expose her, make her vulnerable. But a single word, it's deniable. It's casual. Yet, it is designed to elicit the maximum possible emotional response from you. She is not checking in on you. She is checking on her power over you. Your immediate, eager reply is the echo she is listening for. It confirms her deepest, most primal suspicion that despite your silence, you are still there, waiting in the dark, and that her influence remains perfectly intact. The core mechanism at play here is not love, but ego restoration. For months, perhaps years, her sense of desirability was reinforced by your consistent validation. Your texts, your calls, your efforts, they were mirrors in which she saw herself as wanted, as valuable. When you took those mirrors away, her reflection began to fade. Her outreach is not a conscious decision to win you back. It is an unconscious scramble to find a reflection, any reflection, to soothe the deep-seated fear of being irrelevant. She is not missing times you asterisk the man. She is missing the feeling she had when she was the undisputed center of times, your time's world. You are not the object of her affection. You are the remedy for her anxiety. This anxiety is triggered by a very specific data point, evidence of your genuine progress. Perhaps she saw a photo of you looking happy, heard through a friend that you're thriving, or simply felt the profound and unnerving silence of your indifference. This is not a trigger of romantic jealousy in the way you imagine. It's a trigger of existential panic. Your happiness without her is the ultimate proof that her role in your story has ended, which threatens the narrative she tells herself about her own importance. Her message is a desperate attempt to rewrite that ending, to insert herself back into the plot. Even as a minor character, she is not trying to get back with you. She's trying to get back into the story where she once held the leading role. You must see this interaction for what it is, a conflict between her inertia and your momentum. She represents the powerful force of emotional inertia, the desire to keep the emotional landscape stable and predictable, even if that landscape is a ruin. In that ruin, she knew her place. She was the one who left, the one with the power. You, on the other hand, represent momentum. You are the force of change, growth, and forward movement. Her text is a gravitational pull, an unconscious attempt to slow your escape velocity, to pull you back into a familiar orbit where the old rules apply. It feels like she is pulling you toward her, but what is actually happening is she is pulling you away from your own future. Her message is also, fundamentally, a test of your frame. It's a subconscious probe to see if you will immediately abandon your new reality and revert to the old one she controlled. When you reply instantly, with excitement and a barrage of questions, you are communicating one thing with perfect clarity. Your world stops the moment she enters it. You are showing her that her key still works in the lock to your emotional state. The psychological dynamic she is testing is her own power. She needs to know if she can still command your attention, if she still holds that prime real estate in your mind. The moment you give her that attention without her earning it, you have failed the test, proving that the man who moved on was just a temporary role, not a permanent change. Think about it this way. A woman who is truly secure, healed, and moving forward with her own life feels no compulsive need to check on the past. Her energy is directed forward. The impulse to reach back is almost always a symptom of her own stagnation, a sign that she is seeking comfort in the familiar because her present is providing none. Her message is not a sign of her strength or renewed interest, but a confession of her weakness. It is a subtle admission that her emotional well-being was, and perhaps still is, outsourced to your validation. You mistake this cry for help as a declaration of love, when it is really just an echo in an empty room, a room she is only now realizing she has to furnish on her own. You've seen this before, haven't you? The sudden reappearance that feels like destiny but is actually desperation. So the ultimate truth is this: her message is not an invitation back to her life. It is a confirmation that you have finally started your own. It is the most definitive proof you will ever receive that your process of letting go is working. She feels the shift in the universe because you are the one who shifted it. Her text is not a question you need to answer. It is a statement about you, delivered by her. It is a mirror held up not to show you her desire, but to reflect your own freedom. The power is not in crafting the perfect reply. The power is in understanding that her message requires no reply at all. In that silence, in that sovereign detachment, you don't just win the game. You realize you are no longer playing. And so, in this critical moment, the path diverges. The man you were instinctively lunges for the phone, his heart a frantic drum against his ribs. His mind races, cycling through 1,000 potential replies, each one a desperate bid to be witty, to be cool, to be the one who finally wins. This is the path of reaction, of letting her chaos become your own. But the man you are becoming does something radically different. He breathes. He observes the surge of adrenaline, the ghost of hope, the echo of pain, and he simply lets it pass through him without judgment. His first move is not a move at all. It is a deliberate, powerful stillness. He understands that the war is not won in the cleverness of his reply, but in the quiet sovereignty of his initial pause. In that space, he reclaims the power she is subconsciously trying to take back. The ideal reaction is not a strategy. It is a shift in perception. The common man immediately asks, what does she want? What should I say? He places himself at the center of a problem he needs to solve for her. The centered man, however, asks a different question entirely. What does this event reveal? He depersonalizes it. Her message ceases to be a personal summons and becomes a piece of data, an observation of human nature in motion. He sees not an ex-lover reaching out, but a predictable pattern of emotional physics, an ego seeking equilibrium. This shift from participant to observer is the source of all his power. You don't resist a wave by standing against it. You understand its nature and let it pass. His emotional conclusion is not one of anxiety, but of a quiet, almost scientific curiosity. He is no longer on the stage. He is in the audience, watching the play unfold. This is where you must understand the immense power of the unsent draft. The reactive man torments himself, crafting the perfect response, a message designed to signal his indifference while secretly hoping for her engagement. It's a performance. The mature man, if he feels the need, might type out a reply, a long, honest, angry, or hopeful one, and then he deletes it without a second thought. The purpose of this act is not to communicate with her, but to communicate with himself. He is not rehearsing a line. He is excavating the last remnants of his own emotional attachment. He sees his lingering neediness, his pride, his pain, all laid out in pixels, and in the act of deleting it, he lets it go. He purges the emotional poison so that if he does choose to respond, it comes from a place of absolute clarity and calm, not from a wound that is still bleeding. If a response is given, it is an act of profound minimalism. It is not cold, but it is not warm. It is neutral. It is a calm, simple acknowledgement that offers no hooks, no questions, and no emotional fuel. Something like, good to hear from you, hope you're well, sent hours or even a day later. The psychology behind this is critical. You are signaling that your life's momentum was not interrupted. You are responding from a place of completeness, not from a place of lack. You are not trying to restart a conversation. You are politely closing a door that she tried to nudge open. You have to understand, the moment you truly let her go, not as a strategy, but as a genuine release, you stopped trying to grasp at water. And it is only when you stop grasping that the water becomes clear. Her message is merely a reflection in that still water, showing you how far you have come. This stillness is, paradoxically, the most magnetic force you can generate. The man who scrambles to reply, who plays games of timing and wit, is still broadcasting need. He is showing that she has the power to command his immediate emotional and mental real estate. But the man who is genuinely unmoved, whose peace is not for sale, becomes a source of immense gravitational pull. He is not trying to prove his value. His lack of reaction times is times the proof. His silence is not a tactic, it is a state of being. He has built a world so solid, so fulfilling, that her entry or exit from it is no longer a defining event. You don't attract what you want by chasing it. You attract what you want by becoming still enough to be seen. Your stillness communicates a silent, unshakable truth. My center of gravity is now within me. Ultimately, the ideal reaction culminates in a moment of profound internal liberation. You see nothing. Not the burning anger of a man scorned, nor the electric jolt of a man vindicated. Just a quiet, decisive calm. The emotional charge has been neutralized. Her message is no longer a test you must pass, but an echo from a life you no longer inhabit. It is the sound of a distant storm that you can observe from the safety of a sturdy shelter you built with your own hands. In that moment, you realize the ultimate truth. Her validation was never the prize. The prize was the peace you found when you stopped seeking it from her. The times, ding times of the notification is no longer a summons. It is just a sound, and you are finally, truly free. And so the great reversal finally clicks into place. You see it with a clarity that is almost blinding. This entire time, you thought the story was about her, her moods, her signals, her unpredictable return. But it was never about her. It was always about you. Her message, that ghost from the past appearing on your screen, was not the final test of her love for you. It was the final test of your love for yourself. The man she left is not the man who received her text. The silence between those 2 points is where you were forged in the quiet discipline of rebuilding your own world without her as its center. You realize now that the game board you were so intently focused on was an illusion. The only winning move was to stand up and walk away from the table, not because you were bitter, but because you were finally free. Her validation was a beautiful cage, and her text was not an invitation to re-enter, but the final, distant echo of the lock clicking open. We began with a paradox. She reaches out not because you've been waiting, but precisely because you've stopped. Before, you might have seen this as a tactic, a cruel game of cat and mouse. But now you understand it on a much deeper level. It's a law of emotional physics. Your stillness, your sovereign and unshakable presence, creates its own gravitational field. Her outreach is an unconscious, instinctual reaction to the sheer force of the man you've become in her absence. She isn't feeling too much love for you. She is feeling the overwhelming weight of your newfound center, a stability that makes her own internal chaos feel unbearable. Your peace becomes a mirror reflecting her storm, and she reaches out not to join your calm, but to pull you back into the familiar turbulence where she once held all the power. You see her impulse for what it is, a desperate attempt to anchor herself to the very rock she once tried to shatter. This understanding is where the game truly ends, because you realize you were never playing against her. You were playing against your own desperate need for her approval, a ghost you kept alive long after she was gone. Her patterns of approach and withdrawal only have power over a man who is willing to chase, a man whose emotional state is a ship at the mercy of her tides. The moment you become the lighthouse, still, rooted, and shining your own light regardless of the weather, the entire dynamic collapses. She doesn't want your explanations. She doesn't want your logic or your carefully crafted speeches about how much you've changed. She wants your stability, but she wants it as a resource to be consumed, not as a destination to be earned. The chase ends not when you finally catch her, but when you realize the prize you were seeking was your own reflection in her eyes, a reflection you no longer need to see to know who you are. This newfound clarity is not a weapon to be wielded against her. It is a shield to protect the sacred ground of your own peace. The final turn is not one of triumphant ego, but of a quiet, detached compassion. You see her not as a villain, but as a person caught in her own predictable patterns, just as you once were. The true victory is not in a clever reply or a cold silence meant to punish. It is in the profound stillness that follows your understanding, a silence that is not empty, but full. It is full of your own life, your own purpose, your own unshakable calm. Her message is no longer a summons to an old war. It is simply a notification, a sound from a world you no longer inhabit. The transformation is complete. Now, look back at the situation, at her, at yourself, and comment what you now see in her that you couldn't before.